Hello, everybody. We will kick off in just a minute here. Okay. So excited for this. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to VA Fest. I'm really excited for this session. We have the amazing Paige Brincks with us here today, and she's going to be sharing her story on how she went from corporate breadwinner, desperately wanting to be home with her kids, and she made it happen in 4 months. And I love Paige. And I love your story because of the way that you led yourself through that process and you showed up every dang day before you saw that reality in front of you. And I think that's one of the most magic things that it doesn't even matter VA business, anything. Like if you have what Paige has, that conviction, that grit, that mindset, that like, I'm gonna make it happen no matter what, like you will be successful in anything. So Paige is coming in here to share the juice with us. Welcome, Paige. Yay. Do you want to just dive right
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see this room full of people that, we're all tied together through Bree somehow. There's a lot of names on here that I either don't recognize or I went through I guess when it was still called Mom to VA before it rebranded. So I went through the program in 2024. And so I guess to just kind of kick it off, I would love to tell you a little bit. She mentioned like it took me 4 months to really do this, and just to kind of give you a backstory as to really what can be possible if you have the determination and the dream in yourself to be your own business owner. So I have two children. My first was born right as COVID started, and so I always pictured this. I went to college, I had a 4-year degree, I was going to work in corporate America. Then COVID happened and we all came home. He was literally born the day that COVID pretty much started. I live in Iowa. Pretty much started. He was born on St. Patrick's Day. And so from there on out, we worked from home. My husband came home and here we had, after I came back from maternity leave, it was this, I never missed a day. And I was like, wow, I could do both of these things. Like, and so for 20 months, that's what we lived. And he stayed home with us and we worked and I never had to miss anything of his. And then we had our second in February of 23, and the company I had worked for at the time was going back to this hybrid um, schedule. And I was then forced to go back into the office after having our second daughter. And although I was home a couple days a week, like I knew this agonizing feeling of like, I don't want somebody else watching her. And so that was really my driving force. However, and she mentioned this, like I worked for a great company who I made good money. And so that was probably like the biggest part for me of I want to get out from under this, but when you make good money in a position and you are like the breadwinner of your family, you can't just like immediately cut everything off. And so I had to be very strategic about like I knew I wanted out, but I didn't know what that entailed or how I was going to do it. Um and there was one day I saw a very close high school friend of mine post something about like this and Bree's smiling because it's actually, if anybody knows her, it's Mel through you see her name pop up a lot, but her and I went to high school together and um I saw her post something about she went through this course. And at the time I was like, maybe that's something I didn't jump on it, didn't ask her any questions. Then I saw something again that she posted about it in July of that year. And I'm like, and you'll hear this throughout. So it's not, I will say this now. I have a strong faith. I am a Christian. And I was like, maybe this is God telling me and giving me a nudge of I should ask her about it. And so I did. And she kind of introduced me. And it was that moment. I'm like, this is it. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is it for me. And I jumped head in. I met with Bree. I was like, I'm doing this. And so I signed up in either August or September of that year. And I will be honest, I kind of had this thought of like, this is going to happen immediately. But then it didn't. I had all the skills. I worked in corporate America for a decade. I had, or 10 years. Um, I had leadership experience. I was really like, I had all the operation experience. I knew how to answer emails. And so I really thought that that was my path. But then I could get, like, I started applying. I got discovery calls and then would hear nothing back. And it was just this long thing. And I could have easily got discouraged. And I just, something in me told me to keep going and keep, like, there was another way that this was going to work out. And I mean, I probably sent out like 50 applications and I, I don't know what it was. One night I said a prayer and I said, God, if this is really what you intend for my life to look like, I want, and there was a push, in the cohort that was going on for like, how is the end of 2024 gonna look? And I remember getting on a call one week and I said, I'm going to leave my job by the end of 2024. At that time, I had zero clients. I hadn't heard a yes from anything. And I just remember, like, it was the very same time that I just heard this thing from, like, this voice from God saying, like, I've got you. It's going to work out and it's going to work out. And long story short, I ended up putting my resignation in on December 22nd. My first client, who I am still with today, that I am her right-hand person. She is, I would say, kind of like my ride or die in business at this point. She was my first hire, or she hired, like, I was her first client. She was my first client. The following week, there was another person, and the last person that allowed me to leave my corporate position, um, came through on December 22nd. And that afternoon, then I probably ruined my boss's day at the time because it was right before Christmas. And I called him and I said, hey, look, I'm putting my resignation in. Um, and that's how, and I technically walked away, I think like January 6th of the following year. So that's a very like condensed version, but there like some things. I don't know where all of you are at in your journeys or if you are fully booked out or you're still trying to. Um, However, the biggest thing that I can from that experience, because it would have been so much easier to walk away and say, nope, this isn't going to be for me after the 25th no or the zero response from a business owner. Or I mean, it, I worked a lot in those 8 o'clock to midnight hours and 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. hours. And I kind of ran on little sleep for a long time, but that's how badly I wanted it. Um, I showed up to every single call. I made it a priority that I had to apply for 3 positions every day before I went to bed. And I did that religiously every single day for almost 4 months straight. And eventually it pays off. And you find the clients that align with you. And I think it's a really good learning experience because when I started, it's really like I'm now a year and a half into this working fully for myself as a business owner and the hours that I want to work. And what I do today versus what I thought I was going to do when I started are completely different. I think that that's fantastic because I think it shows the growth in my my vision and what I want my business to look like. But at the time, I thought it was going to, just be a walk in the park, and it is if you're willing to hold yourself accountable and to want that want that bad enough for yourself that it pays off in the end. And that would be my biggest piece of advice for you is if you are still looking for those clients or that first client hasn't come yet, make it your job to find a job. And I have said that from like ever ever since I started. That was my philosophy, and that is why I held myself accountable to. I wasn't going to bed until I applied for 3 things every night and to track them. That was my biggest piece. So now I have 4 amazing clients that I'm fully booked out, and keeps me very busy. But I have transitioned from more of like I would say I was in the kind of the EA space and like very beginnings of operations to now like a fully like OBM, do a lot of systems. So I got like really flipped the switch as to what I intended on doing versus what I do today. Um, And there is not a single thing that I would have changed about how it all unfolded. And I told somebody else this one time. So my daughter is now 2. She still takes naps. There's not a single day that I miss rocking her for a nap. I'm there to feed him lunch every day. I take my son to school every morning. And those are the moments, and I've said this enough now that I don't think that I'll cry when I say it, but those are the moments, nope, I'm not going to, that when I was so tired and I just wanted to give up, those are what I didn't want to miss. And that's what kept moving me forward. So it's I'm very thankful and forever grateful for the everything that Bree's program puts in front of you and teaches you to be able to do that for yourself.
And it's all you, baby. You made it happen. Oh, yes. I think like there's so much power in the why that makes you cry. And I think like I had that. You guys who've been around for a while have seen me like totally bust into tears on calls. Same reason for Paige. It's like it's not about being a VA. It's about having a life that doesn't come at a cost or a sacrifice. And I think that when, like, tell me if I'm wrong, Paige, but when you have that deep conviction, it's so much bigger than just being a VA. Like, you will be unstoppable because you can't not make it happen.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So good. Okay, so Kristen asked a really good question. I think this would be really amazing to dive into is I think her question was like, how can you reframe disappointment? But like on that note, I would love to just hear you talk on, the hard days when you didn't feel like doing it and you like normalizing it's freaking hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. The people who have staying power make it happen. And so how did you on the days where you felt like throwing in the towel, how did you re-find your staying power?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would be lying to say that there were some days that I probably didn't. Like that I just ended up letting that win. Not very many of them, but um I so I put a couple of like visual things together for myself. So one was like a tracker of every job that I applied for. But two, I also like typed out what my goals were. And that just helped remind myself of like I don't want a boss. And I also should say like I worked in a male dominated industry. And so there was a lot of like no one really else understood where I was coming from of like wanting to be with my kids. Not that I got like any slack or like anything negatively by that, but they just didn't quite understand it the same way that as a mom that I felt. And so that was also like I didn't want a man telling like as my boss saying like, "Oh, you have to be in the office that day." Those little pieces really made me stop and think and really reframe when I got into a negative space of like this is why I'm going to keep going forward. And I remember there was a client that I not there was a potential client I was interviewing with, and I made it onto like the final round of interviews, and I really thought that that was going to be it. And then they told me that they went with somebody else, and I'll be honest, I was very discouraged. But I think for me, it was knowing like I had never actually in my life I've prayed thousands of prayers probably, and I've never really heard a voice answer me in the way that I did. And that was my other like reframe of there's a higher power, whatever you believe in. If you there, if there's a higher power that you believe in, to listen to that and let it like kind of sink in that you're not really in control of, you're in control of the actions, but your overall plan of where you're going for, that also helped me in those negative times of like, just let it go. That wasn't the right client. There's no reason to dwell on it. And today, I actually heard somebody just say this the other day, like, I give my 12 self 24 hours to sulk and then I move on. And that is like a really good, for me, like I just said this to my client yesterday. I said, like I was not in the best mood probably on Monday, and I just like everything was just kind of bugging me. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this go on all week long. Like I'm moving on. Today's a better day. Like we're gonna. But those are the things that I think you have to allow yourself to reframe. Like, have a moment and know that there is something better. And that I'm probably not like the best person to how do I reframe? Like I really don't know how my mind redoes those steps, but that's kind of talking out loud how I feel like I have overcome them.
Oh, so good. So good. This is the magic. This is it. And I think when you have that, it's like the strategy. Like, yes, of course, strategy is important, but I think the strategy kind of like comes together when you're just like, I'm gonna make this happen no matter what. And what you mentioned about listening to that higher power, that voice that's guiding you and those nudges, and then you move on them with the knowing that you're gonna make it happen. It's just like, boom, game over, game over. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions in the chat about where do you find jobs? How did you find your clients? All of that. And what I really love is what some of I know Paige will share is exactly what the speakers today have been reinforcing. Every single one of our speakers so far has mentioned this. So share away, Paige. Where did you find your clients?
So I just want to make sure they're just wondering like where the postings. That's kind of the generalization of the questions, right?
Yeah, but I think also of like you because you had full access to the job board with
Yep.
daily jobs,
Did.
and I know you also booked clients not through the job board too.
Yeah.
So both sides.
So I would say that the job board within the program itself, I religiously applied for jobs. Now, I will say in the beginning, like I applied for everything, whether I was qualified or not. However, the longer the more and more I got into it, the more I realized that like your time is money. And if you're applying for things that don't truly align with who you are or what you think that you want to do, or like maybe the client is in a certain industry that you really don't mesh well with. It doesn't like over time, it doesn't really make sense to like waste your time applying for those. And when I made that shift of like, I'm really only going to apply for things that I feel passionate about or s- connected to, that's when I started getting much more discovery calls and like true discovery, like where I felt leaving that call like on fire that we connected really well. There are several that I took that it just like, oh, this was okay. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. But once I made that shift of being very intentional with the people, and I'll be honest, when I made that shift, it definitely made it harder to like hit that number of 3 a day. But I just had to work harder for it. So I used like there's all sorts of different Facebook groups out there. If you're not in at least five of them, I would definitely recommend that. In fact, like one of my the client that I ended up connecting with it allowed me to leave my corporate job. I ended up finding through like it's probably not one of the common ones, and if anyone wants to know what the name is, I you can connect. I don't remember what the name of the Facebook group is, but I know it's not one of like the top ones, but that's where I ended up finding that posting at. And I will also be honest, like some of the places, I think you really just have to look and be like, is this worth my time? If you're competing with thousands of people to apply for jobs, is that really worth like unless you truly have those skills that you know are going to outshine everybody. That's where I really made the intentional shift at.
I love that. Okay. One quick question on that note, and then I'd love to hear you just reflect on like a day in the life, in your current scenario, what it looks like and all of that. But so once you started being very intentional about which jobs you were applying for, I imagine you also were very intentional about how you were applying. Can you talk a little bit about that of like the roles that you ended up booking? Um, like what do you think made the shift from, discovery calls and hearing no or not hearing back and then suddenly you're like, I mean, it was the same week you booked like multiple dream clients and then I'll never forget that date, December 22nd. I'll never forget it. Like it happened in a flood. It was like four
It did.
months every day and then boom, like it was just done, period.
Yep. So I would say like this maybe sound like, oh, duh. Like, but I would say my messaging of like how I answered those questions, making sure I hit on a lot of the positions I was applying for was like operations coordinator or an operations something. That was probably like the main anything that had operational in it because I had a lot of experience. Now I work like my corporate experience came from like the supply chain world and train like logistics. That's where that now doesn't technically really translate to a lot like who my clients are today. I work with a lot of like coaching clients and um like business owners of um I guess the other one is technically a coach as well. So like in that coaching space and I really fine-tuned like the wording that those people are pay attention to. So I had to do some digging as to like what type of organizational support they needed. And that's how I really kind of perfected those. And then I would use pretty much everybody asks the same types of questions, maybe a little bit differently. So I would keep the answers to those questions and then repurpose them or tweak the answers in however that type of question was. So I was kind of saving myself time. I would say that was the other like key takeaway for me. Once I really started to like work smarter and not harder, it got a lot easier too. So saving your questions and keeping track and being proactive, those were the biggest things for me to take that jump. And the other thing I would say is like not being afraid to like retweak your portfolio. I thought I had a really great portfolio, but then once I shifted to knowing exactly what my niche was, and I think funny thing is what it was then to what it is now, like it's shifted again. And that's okay. Like as a business owner, you get that opportunity and to be able to do that. And I had to tweak that visual along with it. And it seemed to click. And then just showing up for yourself in the interview. Really acting like maybe you don't know it 100%, but I will tell you from experience, that does not serve a business owner well if you're like, I don't know that. Like it just creates doubt in them. If you are somebody that is willing to watch a YouTube video or like just read on a task that you're not, maybe you know a little bit about, but you're not 100% on, you'll sell yourself short in an interview with them because they need somebody like Shane had said, like I need somebody that I know and that can do the hardest thing and have the trust in them. That's what the business owners are looking for. And after a year and a half, I've discovered that it makes me less credible if I go to them asking questions on like on my other screen right now. I have a website up that I'm working on for somebody. If I were to go to her, she'd be like, I don't know. And then that would just create the doubt, right? Like that is the shift that I had to make in showing up for interviews. And I think that really took me to being fully booked out then.
I love that. I love that. Do you have any tips? Sandra asked if you don't know how to do something, how do you say that without saying, I don't know?
It's tricky. I would definitely avoid saying I don't know. I would say something along the lines of like, I don't have a lot of experience in that, but like I am somebody, whatever the platform is or whatever the question is, like if it's tech, like I'm tech savvy or and I pick up on things very quickly where I can like self-teach. That's how I would get around that without, you're not obviously lying to them, but I do not think that it helps you in any regard when you tell them like I don't know. So they're looking for somebody that's willing to find out the answers when they don't know, regardless of the industry they're in or who that client is. That's really at the end of the day, they need a right-hand person that's willing to find those, dig deep, maybe spend a couple hours on something that you didn't intend. That I mean, honestly, part of my day sometimes is that where I think that it's going to take something and it takes me three 3 hours longer because I didn't know it, but and that's also the type of person I am. Like I'm stubborn. I'm not going to go ask for help until I absolutely have exhausted everything that I can and figure it out myself. So,
I love that. And unequivocally, like business owners, they don't look for someone who's like, I have my PhD and I know what I know and that's it. Like they don't want that. They want someone who's like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like you tell me what you need and I got you. I'm ride or die. Like I'm resourceful.
yep,
And they hire specifically for that character and that aptitude. And I think that's like I feel like that's a big theme of today is it's like who you are is the savage VA. You are the 1% VA. You go figure it out. Like you don't let anything stop you, anything get in your way.
that's right.
Yeah. Ah, so good. Okay. Any last questions for Paige? Drop them in the chat. While you guys, if you're thinking of anything, put it in the chat. I'm going to do our giveaway for this session. So for this session, the giveaway is your choice of three different things. You can, and this is, I was like all stuff in front of me right now. So the ring light that I use is an option. My mic, not actual for my desk. I'm going to order you new ones, but ring light, mic, microphone or my headphones for work. And I'm going to send you my favorite ones and you get to choose which they are. So I am going to scroll down. I have my eyes closed. And the winner of this is Catherine G. Catherine G, congratulations. I am going to send you a message really quick so you have the email address to email to claim your prize. And did anyone else have any questions for Paige? Let's see. I love you guys. I love how you're blowing up the chat. That makes me so happy. Unhinged chat. Yes. Okay. Well, it looks like we are golden. So amazing. We will meet back at, let's see, tw oh my gosh, at 12 noon. So in 30 minutes. And we have the visibility strategies for VAs with Sam Altieri. I'm so excited. Paige, I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your magic and your heart and tips and all of that. And like, yeah, just looking at the chat, everyone's like, ah, Paige is the best. We love you. So thank you. Great to see all of you. And I will see you in a half hour. Bye, everybody.